Welcome to Move the Chains with Jonathan Rivers. Here's your host, Jonathan Rivers.
Let there be football. Welcome to Move the Chains. I'm your host, Jonathan Bam Rivers. And on the MTC call sheet today, I'm going to talk about the biggest concerns I have heading into the 2025 NFL season. Free agency's already passed. The draft will be here in less than 2 weeks, and I'll be talking about that next week. But there are some things that I always try to take a look at regarding the NFL, and there are some definitely when it comes to concerns that I have. So I'll definitely get to those in first down. And the second down, as always, I'm going to hit the social media, answer the questions that people have across the globe about the NFL. And my nonsense narrative today, I think there are a lot of teams that think tanking is the answer because they think having a high draft pick is the answer, and they never seem to think back on why they're in the position they're in the first place to have the high draft pick. So I'm going to talk about why tanking may be one of the worst decisions or one of the worst strategies ever. And I think if people say teams should tank, it's probably the biggest nonsense narrative I've done on this show. And last but not least, there's been a way that quarterbacks have played the game for over 100 years. But in the last 10, 15, 20 years, it's changed. And if you think it's going anywhere, you're mistaken. So go ahead and get off your soapbox and realize that the new guard of quarterback is here. All that and more here on Move the Chains. Maybe you know how we do it. Let's kick it off with first down. All right, so 2025 is approaching quickly, man. I mean, August is going to be here before we know it, which means preseason, which means the start of the 25 season, and I can't wait. But I do have some concerns about specific teams, players, and situations going into the season. And it's not necessarily a concern because it's a bad thing. It's a concern because it may put a team in a less than advantageous situation than they were, even though it's something that they have to do. So here are the biggest concerns that I have moving forward. I'm going to chop these up individually. Brock Purdy's potential contract. One of the most debated contracts that you're probably going to see in the NFL in a long time, and I think rightfully so. Tua Tagovailoa, starting quarterback of the Miami Dolphins, health has been an issue since he's been in the league, and it's still an issue. And because I think he's such a great player, that makes it an even bigger issue. And lastly, I'm going to talk about the Titans drafted Cam Ward, presumably with the number 1 overall pick, why that concerns me and why it has nothing to do with the phenomenal quarterback coming out of the U. All right, so let's start with Brock Purdy. So remember, Brock Purdy was not just a 7th round pick, not just a last round pick, but the last overall pick literally as Mr. Irrelevant. And I want you to think about those teams that Brock Purdy helped quarterback after Trey Lance. Because remember, San Francisco really had to bite the bullet, and they saved themselves with the same gun, right? Because they drafted Trey Lance, and we didn't know what he was. Trey Lance was hurt. So it's not as if we were sitting here saying Trey Lance can't play. Maybe internally San Francisco knew, but he had the starting job, but ended up getting injured at the start of the season a few years ago, I think in a typhoon against the Bears, and was never the same. And Brock Purdy took over the starting job and didn't relinquish it. So shout out to Brock Purdy for that. But remember how that team was built. That team was built on all-pros everywhere. Remember, San Francisco was a team that had so many all-pros on the offensive and the defensive side of the football that the conversation was, is Brock Purdy even that good, or is it everybody else around him? I'll always say it's always a combination of both, but that was the narrative because the team was so good. Now they've had to move on from a lot of those players that almost a third of their salary cap is dead cap space because of the players they no longer have on their team. So remember, now we're in a conversation with, do you pay Brock Purdy $50, $60 million a year? And if you're somebody who's on the Brock Purdy train, you say absolutely. He's led the team to 2 conference championship games. He's led them to a berth in the Super Bowl, and he's been good. He's won a lot of games, and he has. And if you're somebody who's against Brock Purdy or doesn't think he deserves the money, you'll say that's not how San Francisco has been built under Jimmy Garoppolo and under Brock Purdy. They paid everybody else large amounts of money and paid the quarterback okay money. But is Brock Purdy okay with okay money? But the truth of the matter is San Francisco still has him under his 5th year of his rookie deal where he's getting $5 million, then they can franchise him for the next 2 seasons. Now, for everybody that thinks that's going to really kill Brock Purdy, the only thing that means is that he won't have a long-term deal with guaranteed money, but he will have guaranteed money. And remember, when you're franchise tagged, you get the average salary of the top 5 salaries at your position. So he'll still probably get somewhere north of $50 million. It just may not be more than 1 year. But if you're Brock Purdy, you want the extension, you want that opportunity. If you're San Francisco 49ers, you want to try to build a winning team like you've been doing. I'm interested to see how that plays out in San Francisco. When it comes to Tua Tagovailoa's health injuries, from ankle sprains to foot injuries, to rib injuries, to shoulder injuries, to concussions that have been very well documented, to jamming his thumb back in 2020 when he was a rookie in Miami. All these situations have led me to say Tua is a very good quarterback. And you've seen what the Miami Dolphins are without Tua. But as we go back to his time in Alabama, because these are when the injury started, there were no concerns with Tua. People say, well, he didn't have a strong arm. Tua has a good arm. And more importantly, Tua has an accurate arm. But the best opportunity for any quarterback, right, and the best ability has always been availability. So I understand why the detractors are looking at Tua and saying they don't trust him. I think he's a franchise quarterback, and I also think the Dolphins need to make sure that their offense is predicated on protecting Tua Tagovailoa, not just from NFL defenses, but from himself. Because you can only take so many concussions, and the worst part about it is, ladies and gentlemen, that he loves the game. And because he loves the game, he's going to do whatever he can to get back on the field. That in itself can be dangerous and one of the biggest catch-22s in the NFL. All right, now lastly, I want to talk about the Titans and Cam Ward. See this guy right here? Now, I've talked about this, Shedeur Sanders, on this show a lot. And I want to let you know that I love Cam Ward as well. They're two phenomenal players. My biggest concern about him going to the Titans has nothing to do with his ability, has everything to do with the Tennessee Titans and how they're structured. Will Levis is the current starting quarterback for Tennessee, was drafted out of Kentucky. And if you tell me you've seen any ounce of progression out of Will Levis, I'll tell you that you're lying or you're just trying to pull my leg. And see, that's what concerns me, because a lot of times people look at a potential future franchise quarterback, and because they want to play him in the present, they'll end up killing their future. You've seen it happen so many times. You've seen it happen with David Carr back in the day, Derek Carr's older brother. You've seen it happen with Andrew Luck. You saw it happen with Zach Wilson. You saw it happen with Sam Darnold before he got to the Vikings when he was drafted by the Jets. So many organizations are not ready for their franchise, so they end up hurrying their franchise and end up killing their franchise all at the same time. And the worst part about it is they don't even know they do it. All right, when we come back from the break, it'll be social media questions. We're going to talk about opportunities that certain teams have and certain teams don't, and why concerns still have some of the best teams being the best teams. Back when we'll move the chains right after this. And welcome back into the show. And before we get to social media questions here on Move the Chains, I want to take this opportunity, as always, to thank my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for the opportunity to host Move the Chains. It's been a phenomenal ride, and the ride is continuing to grow, and we're getting better and better every time we do it, so praise God for that. Secondly, I want to give a shout out to the fans. No matter where I go, like I said, I have people who yell Move the Chains when I walk into the store or I'm outside of the field somewhere, and it's great publicity too, first of all. And I appreciate the love that they're showing for me. I'm glad you appreciate the show, and prayerfully you're learning and growing in football, the game that you love to watch. And lastly, the best production crew in the business, man. Like I said, I can't say enough how much this team means to me and the work that they put in. So I want to give a shout out once again to the best production crew in the business for everything they do, whether it's here on the show, via TV, or via social media on TikTok or YouTube. They're all phenomenal. Having said all that, you know what time it is. Let's get the second down. All right, social media questions. Hit me, Ernest. Let's see what we have right here today. Who has the best chance to win the NFC North in 2025? I truly believe it's the Green Bay Packers. And see, I truly believe you have to understand that you can be the most talented team and not be the best team. I don't get caught up in talent because talent doesn't mean everything. But Green Bay is supremely talented. And there's been this narrative around the Packers, even when Aaron Rodgers was there, I can't believe they never draft a first-round wide receiver. No, they don't draft wide receivers in the first round. They just get better value wide receivers in the second and third rounds, and they turn out to be phenomenal football players. That's the way they do things in Green Bay. They spend first-round picks on offensive linemen and defensive linemen and build their defense because they understand that in order to win, you got to protect the quarterback, and in order to win championships, you have to play good defense, be able to stop the run and get pressure on the quarterback. They are building themselves like the Kansas City Chiefs, and nobody talks about it. Please understand that even with Jordan Love, at times he's great, at times he's not, but at all times he's supremely talented. Remember, we're just going into his third season as a starter. He is still a young quarterback who is learning, and he is, I think, the most talented quarterback possibly in the NFC North. He and Caleb Williams, but he's not the best yet because he has to take care of the turnovers. But I think Green Bay, injuries aside, are primed to be the best team in the NFC North in 2025. The Lions will still be good. Okay, I'm not saying they won't be good. The Vikings may still be good. The Bears will be better, but I think Green Bay has the best shot to win the North. All right, what's my next question? What team has the strongest position group in the NFL? See, this is nerdy type stuff, and this is who I am. I think the Denver Broncos have the best position group in the NFL, and that's their offensive line. So Pro Football Focus has this new stat and metric on how they try to grade offensive line, because I think a lot of times subjectivity comes into play when you're trying to determine who the best offensive line is in football. Because people really, one, don't pay attention to it and wonder how do you grade offensive linemen. So they came up with this metric called OL plus, or offensive line plus. And it takes into account the pressure that teams put on the quarterback. It takes into account pass win rate, run win rate, sacks, and also how much time that a passer has to throw the football. And do you know, along that offensive front for the Denver Broncos, each of their 5 starters, whether it's Mike McGlinchey, whether it's Garrett Bowles, whether it's Luke Wattenberg or Menirez, or if it's Ben Powers, they're all top 10 in each one of those metrics. And as an offensive line, they have one of the best protection rates and one of the lowest protection rates, which means Bo Nix is not getting hit that much. He's protected. And he also has a top 5 time to throw the football at over, 3 seconds or so. 3 seconds is a lifetime to throw the ball in the pocket in the NFL. So when you look back and you say, man, the Denver Broncos had a rookie quarterback. Sean Payton has only been there his second year last year. Why were they in the playoffs? It's because their quarterback played well because he was protected by good coaching and great offensive line play. All right, what's my last question we have here? What's the Chiefs' biggest issue heading into 2025? Now, I've told you this time and time again. You can say the Philadelphia Eagles are because they just won the Super Bowl. I think the Chiefs are the best franchise in the NFL. Right? Philly had the best team this past season, no doubt, but this team has won 3 of the past 6 Super Bowls and have been in there, 7 of the last 8 years or something crazy, right? The Chiefs' biggest concerns for me are their offensive tackle, left tackle, of course, and the health of Rashee Rice. Now, you went and got more from San Francisco to solidify that. You moved Kingsley Suamataia, whom you drafted to play left tackle, and that didn't work out inside to replace the great Joe Thuney, but you still got Creed Humphrey, you still got Trey Smith, and you've got opportunities along that offensive line to be better. If they're just 10% better than they were last year, they're, again, one of the best offensive lines in football. And people don't understand how great Rashee Rice was as a rookie helping his team win a Super Bowl. And he was on his way to all-pro statistics last year until he got injured against the Chargers earlier on when Patrick Mahomes ran into him when they were both trying to make a play on an interception. Rashee Rice is the guy who can pick up big plays on third down, who understands the offense because he's a highly intelligent and his football acumen is through the roof. That addition doesn't come through the draft. It doesn't come through free agency. It comes from injury. So when you're able to get one of your best players back, it makes you that much better without having to give up any draft capital. So if the Chiefs are able to solidify that left tackle spot, and look how good they were without having a solidified left tackle, and also getting back one of their best players and not just best receivers, I think this team is in position to compete once again for the AFC Championship and for the Lombardi Trophy. All right, when we come back from the break, people say you should tank for quarterbacks like Arch Manning. It's the worst take ever. I'll just say it's nonsense. All right, back with my favorite segment of the show right after this. Hey, welcome back in to Move the Chains. And I think that what I'm about to talk about, a lot of people feel differently than I do. And I can't believe it, especially fans. Like, I've literally heard fans say that this is one of the best strategies. And I think this is where you start getting caught up in the pageantry of football and not understanding how you should really build a team. But we know what it is, man. It's time for my favorite segment of the show. It's time for my nonsense narrative. All right, so let's just start here. Let me get my lower third. Tanking is better when it comes to draft position. Teams actually think, some fans actually think they should tank for better draft position. Now, for those of you who don't know what tanking is, tanking basically means that you're trying to put your least foot forward or your worst foot forward in order to be bad so you can get a better draft position. That's right. I've heard people on national TV, national radio, national media say this team did a disservice to themselves because they won games in 2023 heading into 2024. Or before 2024, so it compromised the 225 draft status. And this is what I'll say. Tanking is just a terrible mindset. I understand how the draft is set up. I understand that because you were the worst team, you get the opportunity to pick the best player in college. But see, this is what I'll say as well. You act like tanking is okay because you get a high draft pick, but yet you don't understand that some teams are terrible at drafting. Some teams are terrible at evaluating. Some teams are terrible at understanding value. This is why they are in position to get the top 1, 2, 3 picks in the NFL draft every single season. Now, the Bears were an outlier, right? Because the Bears were able to get their top 10 pick for Caleb Williams via trade, right? So they had 2 top 10 picks and still didn't have the worst record in the NFL in 2023 heading into 2024. right? That's an anomaly. That doesn't happen all the time. But when I look at teams like the Giants, I look at teams like the Jets, I look at teams like the Jaguars, I look at teams like the Titans who have top picks almost every year. Now, the Jaguars were in the playoffs a few years ago, so they're not this year. My point is they weren't last year. When you say you want to tank, what you're doing is you're executing what poor teams do. That's poor judgment. You have a poor culture, and I don't think you have a front office that understands what it is that they're doing. Because if you take the number 1 overall pick, but yet you don't have the tools to develop him, then what does it matter? You're going to have the next number 1 overall pick, and what's likely going to happen is the number 1 overall pick for you is going to be a quarterback. He's not going to be developed. You don't know how to protect him, so you're not going to draft and acquire offensive linemen through free agency. You're not going to build your defense through the draft. You're not going to build your defensive line the way you should be from the inside out, from front to back, and you're going to continue to be in this cycle of drafting over and over again because you think you need to tank. Do you know I've literally heard Pittsburgh Steelers fans say they want to get rid of Mike Tomlin because they're too good every year and they're just good enough to make the playoffs but not good enough to be bad? They want to tank and lose a year so they can get a high draft pick to draft a quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers fans, whom I consider one of the most competent and knowledgeable fan bases in all of sports, not just the NFL. Shout out to my mom, by the way. She's a huge Steelers fan. I don't put her in this category, all right? But my point is they would rather see Mike Tomlin go because he wins too much. You'd rather be trash for a year so you can get a high draft pick as opposed to being in the playoffs and have a chance to win a Super Bowl. I don't get it, and I don't get why people think that way, which is why I think this is one of the greatest nonsense narratives that I could ever have for you guys. If you think tanking is the answer, you're dead wrong. All right, when we come back from the show, there's a new wave of quarterback in the NFL, and they're not going anywhere. I'll talk about it on the final drive right after this. Hey, welcome back, and it's time for the last segment of the show, which means it's time for the final drive. Look, man, I know you might hate it, but dual quarterbacks are here to stay, bro. The Lamar Jackson of the world, the Josh Allens of the world, the Jane Daniels of the world, the Justin Herberts, and the Patrick Mahomes. Mobile quarterbacks who can beat you with their arms and their legs are here. So everybody that continues to want your quarterback to be a statue in the pocket, get off of your soapbox, get off of that old horse, and start riding a new one because these quarterbacks are here to stay. All right, like I said, you cannot just catch us right here on the Sports Leader WXTX Fox 54. You can also catch Move the Chains on YouTube. Make sure you go to @move_the_chain. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment, like it. We're here for all of it. Hey, another banger, as always, here on Move the Chains. Hey, for the best production crew in the business, I'm your boy, Jonathan Bam Rivers. And always remember, build every day, brick by brick. And until next time here on Move the Chains, God bless.